CHURAIL. There are many stories one can tell you about a CHURAIL, but this one is mine. So sit back, relax, and unwind into the night. Now, before I begin my story, let me tell you a little about who a CHURAIL is. She is an unholy, evil being resembling a woman who wanders at night. They say she is a demonic entity who thirsts to kill her victims in the most gruesome possible way. It is uncertain about her origins, but her folk tales are mainly around South Asia and Southeast Asia. She is particularly popular in India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, with many old stories about her. They say she wanders at night on the streets, and you can hear her anklets as she walks. They say she is normally dressed in white, and sometimes she is seen peeking through the door gap, keyholes, or windows. The true form of a CHURAIL has been described by very few people who have actually escaped her to be an extremely ugly, hideous looking woman with a long black tongue, thick lips, although sometimes she is reported to have no mouth at all. She also has a pot belly, claw-like hands, and scruffy long hair. She is known to knock on people's doors, windows, crying, asking them to let her in. The CHURAIL also lures men into woods or mountains where she kills them. And she is known to be a shapeshifter. She can assume the form of a beautiful young woman at times, carrying a lantern with her head covered by a veil. She is also reported to be seen around graveyards, abandoned battlefields, abandoned homes, and crossroads. She can also be heard humming on trees. They say if you hear your name being called out at night, do not turn around, as this is a CHURAIL who will latch onto you if you do. One of the most famous things about a CHURAIL is that her feet are the other way around. Now let's begin our story. And I do have to warn you, if you're faint-hearted or if you're easily scared, please end this video now. This story is based in a Pakistani village. An old rustic wheel cart was being pushed on a narrow Pakistani village street. Ashraf was getting ready to sell his bangles in the night market of the city. He would walk for miles every day to sell bangles, pushing his old cart. It was a busy market, and all the hustle and bustle meant Ashraf could earn a lot more than what he could in his own village. Ladies from all over the city would come and buy jewelry from this market for their weddings and various other celebrations. Like any other night, lights were turned off in the market and everyone started to head home. Ashraf packed his bangles into his boxes and onto his cart and started pushing his wheel cart back towards his village. thinking about how much he made that night and wondering what colors he would need to replace the following night. While he was walking, pushing his cart onto the streets now, just outside the village, he passed by a huge tree and heard his name being called. Ashraf turned around and could not believe his eyes. There stood a beautiful woman in the middle of the road. He wondered what she wanted from him and how did she know his name. He hesitantly pushed his cart towards her and she said in the most sweet voice, "You dropped your bangles along the way and you didn't even notice. Here you go." She handed him the bangles and he asked her how did she know his name. She told him she was an old customer of his and know him from the night market, as she also works there. And she doesn't live too far from here. She was also heading back home after a long night in the market, and her home was in a nearby village. She told Ashraf that she remembers his name, as he always had the most beautiful bangles from the rest, and she would save up just to buy from him. She told him she liked a set of bright red bangles that night, which she could see on his cart, but she had left her money at home. Ashraf told her she could have it as a gift. They walked until they reached the crossroads, and she headed her way to her village and Ashraf headed his way. But he could not stop thinking about her that night. The next night, Ashraf was walking back home again and he heard his name being called out again under the same tree. It was the same woman. She laughed and told him she was waiting for him, as she could not stop thinking about him. And she told him her name, Layla. They talked and walked again, and they did this for many nights, walking alongside each other, laughing, and sometimes Ashraf would walk her home as well. One night, when Ashraf was walking back, he did not see her under the tree, and he had this uneasy feeling, so he went to her house and could see a lantern lit in the window. He called out for Layla, but she did not respond. He knocked on her old wooden door and finally heard Layla. She told him she could not see him that night, as she wasn't feeling too well. She told him she had a skin disease, which meant she could not come out during the day, but she accidentally did that day, and her skin was burnt, and she did not want him to see her like this. They spoke for a very long time across her door, and Ashraf told her how he felt about her and wanted to marry her. Layla told Ashraf that she was an orphan and had no money at all. She survived on one little she earned by selling flowers which grew in her back garden, and she would sell them in a night market herself. Ashraf told her that he doesn't need anything from her. All he wants is to be with her, and asked her if she loved him too. She told him she did, and they both started to laugh and plan their wedding until dawn. Ashraf came home that morning and told his parents about Layla, and they were very happy that he has finally decided to get married and would finally see their daughter-in-law before they pass away, as they were very, very old. The whole village was very happy about Ashraf's wedding, and knowing that Layla was unable to come out during the day due to her skin condition, everything was prepared for a night wedding. Drums rolled, and Ashraf was on a horse riding towards his bride's house, wearing a traditional Pakistani groom's outfit. They finally got married and were happy to be with each other at last. Layla would only come out at night to do her housework. One night, Ashraf was fast asleep. When he woke up, he realized Layla wasn't next to him. So he got up and searched for her throughout the whole house. She was nowhere to be found. He then heard a humming voice coming from outside the house. Ashraf opened his main door, stepped outside, and he could hear this humming sound getting closer and closer to him. It was full moon that night, and everything was lit up because of that. Ashraf walked towards this humming voice, and he finally reached a tree. He could not believe his eyes. Ashraf saw a lady sitting on top of a tree with very long hair. She was dressed in all white and her back towards Ashraf. Ashraf called her, thinking it was Layla. The lady kept on humming. She did not respond. And then she stopped. And she told Ashraf, "You do know that you're not supposed to turn around when somebody calls your name at night. So why do you expect me to turn around?" By this time, Ashraf realized that it was Layla's voice. He told her to get down the tree right that moment. And Layla started to laugh. She asked Ashraf, "Are you not afraid? I could be a CHURAIL." He told Layla to stop playing around and get down from that tree. Layla jumped down from the tree, still facing the other way, her back towards Ashraf, and walked towards Ashraf. Ashraf could not believe his eyes when he saw her feet towards him, but Layla's face away from him. She told Ashraf that she was a CHURAIL, and she has been watching him passing under that tree for many, many nights. Until that night, she could not resist but call his name out, and when he turned around, she latched onto him. She finally lifted her veil, and Ashraf saw her real appearance. Old, wrinkly woman with long dark hair, black eyes, and her black tongue sticking out. She yelled the loudest scream he has ever heard, and he fainted. Nobody knows what happened to Ashraf. The following night and day, the villagers searched for Ashraf throughout the whole village with their torches, screaming his name out in every corner of the village, but could never find him. When they went to his house, all they found was his abandoned wheel cart with his bangle still on it, and his parents killed in the most gruesome way possible. If you ever Hear a knock at night. Hear somebody crying. Somebody begging you to let them in. Don't open your windows, your doors, and most importantly, do not turn around, as she could be standing right behind you.
Can you not hear me? I am knocking. Can you not hear me? Open your curtains. I am knocking at your window. Open your window.